Hello guys, welcome to my channel and welcome to the series of deploying on AWS Cloud by using Terraform. If you are new to my channel, don't forget to like, share and subscribe my channel right away. This is Dheeraj Chaudhary and let's continue with our today's tutorial focusing upon deploying AWS Instance and AWS Security Group on AWS Cloud, where first we will understand the prerequisites which are required to implement this hands-on lab today. After that, we would be deploying AWS EC2 Instance along with AWS Security Group on AWS Cloud. Then we will configure and deploy AWS EC2 Instance with HTTPD web server by using AWS user data. And last but not the least, I would be deploying AWS EC2 Instance with Terraform variable mapping. I am not done yet because after this, I would be walking you through with the Terraform official registry documentation, where we will see AWS Instance documentation, AWS Security Group documentation, AWS user data Terraform documentation, Terraform variable mapping documentation, and Terraform count function documentation. So stay tuned till the end, because at the end of this tutorial, I would be sharing with you how you can refer the blog that I have already written for this specific use case, along with how you can refer the GitHub repository for the same. So without wasting much time, let's get started and jump to our screen.
So guys, this is the agenda that we are going to walk through today, step by step. So let's start with our first agenda, that is the prerequisite. So as part of the prerequisite, what we have to do is you have to go ahead and install a virtual private cloud. That is this. After that, you have to install the internet gateway. Once you install the internet gateway, the main table which is going to get created with this VPC, that is this route table, you just have to make the association of internet gateway with VPC. That is prerequisite 1. Now moving towards next, this I have already created one video on YouTube. You can go ahead and refer that, and uh, it is part 1 YouTube video. I will put the link in the description below. So prerequisite 2 is deploy AWS public subnet. So you will have to first deploy a public subnet. Along with that public subnet, you also have to create a custom route table. Once the route table and public subnet is created, you have to make an association between this route table and the public subnet. I have also created one YouTube video for the same, that is part 2 with public subnet and route table. If you don't have idea about how to create it, you can go ahead and check it out. I will put the link in the description below. So let's get started with the basic setup. So we are going to first look into provider files, variable files, and the version file. So to get into this file, we will jump on our Visual Studio Code. So in this Visual Studio Code, you can see I have created a folder EC2 user data and security group. If I click on this, I will open the 3 files. Okay, so let's go with the same sequence. First, we will go with the providers file. So providers file. So in provider, I have given the provider as AWS because we are going to deploy on AWS cloud. Then we have to give the region. I have used the region as US East 1. Then I have given the credential files path over here. Moving towards the next one, that is the variables file. So in variable file, what I have done, I have created a variable that is US East 1. Uh, if in future required, I can add multiple values over here by using a map variable over here. And after that, as we discussed before, we have already created a VPC. So what we are going to do is we are going to use the data block, and as part of the data block, we are going to fetch the VPC. So how we are fetching it? We have used a filter, the tag name. So the VPC with the custom VPC tag, it will return the VPC ID for the same. Now, the second one is AWS subnets. So in this, what we are doing is we are fetching the value with the filter that is tag name public subnet. So automatically it will fetch the public subnet ID for us. Now moving to the third file, that is versions file. So in version file, I have given the required version is greater than or is equal to 0.12. Now, so let's go ahead and deploy EC2 instance with security group. So to deploy that, what we will have to do is we will first have to understand the diagrammatic representation for the same. So as per this diagrammatic representation, we have already created VPC, main route table, made an association. There is an internet gateway also, and over here there is a public subnet and route table. So as part of today's tutorial, we are going to create this EC2 instance, and we are also going to create a security group. So this EC2 instance and security group would be associated to each other, based on which we are going to control the traffic. So let's jump on the screen once again and start executing the commands one by one. So now, as we have seen the three files, version, wheres, and provider, I will close these files and I will open the EC2 file. So as part of this EC2 file, first we are going to create a AWS security group as part of our EC2 underscore security group file. So what is this AWS underscore security group? It is a Terraform resource that we are going to create, and this is the name of the security group that we are going to use, and we are going to allow HTTP, that is inbound traffic. So before we go ahead and understand this, let's refer the official documentation for the same. So this is the official documentation for security group. So whenever you're going to use any resource block, it is your responsibility to go over here and check what are the required parameters and what are the non-required parameters. What I mean by parameters, I mean the argument, a reference you have to see. So over here you can see all the arguments mentioned over here are optional. So there is no mandatory parameter over here. So from this parameter we have used ingress and egress. So ingress is used, see, configuration block for ingress rule can be specified multiple times. So in this we can define the ports based on which we can get the traffic, incoming traffic, and for egress we can configure the outgoing traffic. So now over here, what we have done is we have taken the resource block in which we have defined ingress with the port 80 and egress with port 0. That means all traffic. So outgoing would be for all. And we have given a tag over here, that is Terraform EC2 security group. So that is the first resource that we have created, that is the security group. Now moving towards the next resource, we are going to focus upon AWS instance. So this is the AWS instance official documentation. And if I scroll below, so these are the argument reference. So over here, again, I can see most of the arguments are optional. So you have to check this by yourself each and every time you're going to use it. So if there is any required argument, you have to make sure you use that specific argument. Now, as part of this, we are going to use the argument AMI, instance type, security groups, and subnet ID. Now, for security group, we are just going to refer the security group which was created previously, which would, and this association with subnet ID is known as implicit dependency. So once the security group is going to get created, then only this EC2 instance will be created because it would require the security group ID for this. Okay. Now about the subnet ID. So for subnet ID, if you remember, if I go in variables, this is the subnet that we are fetching. Now, before understanding the subnet ID, you need to understand this count variable, and I will explain you why I am going to use this count variable. Okay. So if I go first understand what is the official documentation. So this count variable is used to iterate your resources. Okay. So for example, suppose if you give a count of 4, and if you're giving this count dot index, you can create multiple EC2 instances. So it is kind of a looping function that you can use. But why I have used it over here? The reason for that is the reason for that is this subnet ID that we are looking for over here. This specific subnet ID is looking for a string, and what we are fetching from AWS underscore subnets, it is going to uh, send us or return us a list. How? Let's go ahead and see in the official documentation. I will open it over here, and the subnet ID. So I will go and AWS underscore subnets. See, if you see the data sources, okay, if you click on this IDs that we are referring over here, that is the attribute. This attribute is going to return a list. but we don't require a list, we require a string. That is the reason I have used a count variable over here. What this count variable is going to do is, so when I am going to use this data, AWS subnets, get public subnet, so it is going to create a list, and in that specific list, it is going to go ahead and add the IDs. And over here, I have mentioned the length uh, function based on which it will fetch the length of this specific returned value. So right now the length is only one. So over here in subnet ID, as you require a string, what I'm doing is I am using this IDs and I'm using a count index over here. So at one time, it is only going to return the value of one specific index. That is the reason we have to use the count variable over here. And I have given the tags as Linux and dev environment. So let's jump to our command prompt and start executing the commands. So before executing, going to the command prompt, let's understand what all commands are of importance for us. The first, we are going to run the Terraform init command, by using which we are going to initialize the repository or the Terraform folder that we have created. So right now, as we can see, there are 4 files over here. So let's go ahead and run the Terraform init command to initialize the repository. Okay, so let's go to the Visual Studio Code, and you can see after initializing the repository, one Terraform folder is created and one HCL log file is also created. So let's clear it and let's see what is our second command, that is Terraform format. So Terraform format is used to format if there is any file which is uh, not properly indented, so that while you're running Terraform plan, you should not get any error. So now going to the third command, that is Terraform plan. So I will go ahead and run Terraform plan. Let's see if it is running. Okay, so it is running, it is reading the subnet. Okay, so it is going to add 2 resources. What are those resources? Let's understand. One resource it is going to add is the security group, that is EC2 SG tutorial. And the second resource that it is going to add is at the top, that is our web server tutorial that we are going to create. So that is what we are going to create right now. So as you can see, the plan is successful. So let's go ahead and run our final command, that is Terraform apply auto approve. So before doing this, I will just show you that at the current moment, we don't have any EC2 instance up and running. And after we run the the apply command, it will go ahead and create EC2 instance along with the security group for us. So what I will do, we already have the EC2 console open. I will also open the security group, so we can check whether the security group is getting created. Okay, so let's go ahead and run our final command, Terraform apply hyphen auto approve. Why I'm using hyphen auto hyphen approve? The reason for that is whenever you want to run this apply command, it will ask you for approval once again. So to avoid that approval, you can use the auto approve command, uh, auto approve parameter along with the apply. So now I have just ran it. So it is reading the data variables plan to add to. Okay, so you can see it is going ahead and creating it. Okay, still creating. Okay, so the apply complete is completed and 2 resources are being added. So let me go ahead and refresh it. Okay, see, our Linux instance is been created and you can see it over here. Now, if I click on this specific instance, we will see the security group which has been associated to it. If I go to security, and here you can see the security group. If I click on the security group, so this is the security group that we have created. Okay, so you will see the inbound rule that we have created is this 80, and the outbound rule was all traffic. See, this is all traffic. So it has been created successfully. So what we can do, guys, so for this tutorial we have three use cases. So what I'm going to do is I'm also going to go ahead and destroy this. So it is the same command. You can just write destroy. So moving ahead, what is our next use case? Our next use case is configure EC2 instance with user data. What we are going to do over here is the EC2 instance that we are going to create. In that specific EC2 instance, we are going to install Apache web server, and we are also going to open a port 80 so that we can go ahead and check whether that Apache web server is up and running. So let's go to the next slide. And over here, I have shown you that what is user data. So user data is kind of shell script that you can mention it over here. In that you can write down whatever commands you want based on the flavor of Linux that you're using. And once the EC2 instance is going to boot, it will install this at the same time. So let's go ahead and get started, and let's jump to our Visual Studio Code. So we are in our Visual Studio Code. I will go ahead and open the file that we have to focus upon. So as per our last use case, the security group is the same as it is, and the resource of AWS instance is also the same. The count variable, the subnet ID, how it is used. The only new argument that we have used over here is user data. So in this user data, what I have done is I have added this command to install the HTTPD server. So whenever a new EC2 instance is going to get created at the time of boot, that specific EC2 instance is going to also install HTTPD web server on our EC2 instance. And over here, if you can see, I have added a file that is echo deployed EC2 with Terraform tutorial. So what it will do is, so whenever we are going to load that specific page on 80, that is port 80, automatically it should show us this message. So the only difference from our last use case is we have just added one argument over here. So what is this argument? This argument is nothing, but this argument is just a user data. Why we use it? So in user data you can install the bin bash based on the flavor that you're using. So suppose if you are using Ubuntu, where you can install Apache. If you are using Linux, Amazon, then you can use HTTPD. So it's not only about the web server, you can install any other softwares or dependency packages also based on the requirement that you have. So this is the only change that we have to make. So what I will do is I will jump back to the command prompt, and I will execute the command to understand whether the changes that we have made to this user data is up and running. So as part of our previous use case, we have already initialized the repository, that is Terraform init. So we don't have to initialize it once again. So we'll directly jump to the second command, that is Terraform format. Okay, so you can see that this file has been updated with the proper indentation. Now I will go ahead and run Terraform plan command. Okay, so over here again you can see that is 2 to add and 0 to change. So if I jump back to my browser, okay, and if I take you back over here to the EC2 console instances, so right now you will see there is no instance which is up and running. Okay, so what we are going to do is we are just going to go ahead and run this. So in this again the same thing. So this is the security group. It's creating the EC2 security group. That is the second resource. And the first resource is the EC2 instance. That is the web server. So if I scroll down, you can see the user data has also been associated to this specific resource. So let's go ahead and run the command. That is, first let me clear the screen. Then let's run the command. That is Terraform apply auto approve. So before that, let's go to the console. Let's refresh. There is no instance up and running. Let's go ahead and run this command. So first it will read the data sources. See data source VPC subnets, and after that it goes ahead and start provisioning the resources. So right now it is creating the AWS security group, that is EC2 security group, that has been created successfully within 5 seconds. Now it is going ahead and creating the web server. So guys, when you're using the user data, at that time it takes some time compared to the normal installation that we do without the user data. The reason for that is when the EC2 instance is going to get created at the time of boot, once all the system settings and configurations are completed, it will go ahead and run the specific commands that you have already added into your user data at the time of booting. So over here you can see the resource has been created successfully. Now as it has been created successfully, I will just come over here and just refresh the screen. So it is showing up and running, but many a times even if it is up and running, you will see that it is creating a problem. So allow some time if you want to check whether the web server is up and running, because right now you can see that the status check is still initializing, and sometimes it might give the error also. Let's go ahead and see if it is giving the error at the current moment. I will open a new tab. So if it is not giving anything, that means okay. So the web server is up and running, and you can see that our message, that is deployed EC2 with Terraform tutorial. So that is the second use case, guys, that we have completed successfully, in which what we have done is we have created a security group, a EC2 instance, and along with that EC2 instance, we have used a user data. That specific user data is going ahead and installing the HTTPD on the service. So let's go ahead and move to our next use case. So our last use case would be how you can configure EC2 instance with variable mapping and user data. So user data we have already done. So what we are going to do is we are going to associate a variable mapping. What is variable mapping? It is nothing. If you go to the official documentation over here, so it is a type of variable. If you see types and values, the result of an expression is value. So these are the Terraform languages uses the following type for its values. So they call these variable types as only types. So you can see string, number, boolean, list, and map. So map is the one that we are going to focus upon. So in map, what you can do is you can use, it is kind of dictionary where you can add a key value pairs, and based on that specific key value pair, you can perform the operations that you want in terms of automation. Okay, so that is what we're going to do is we are going to we are going to create a map variable with different EC2 AMIs, and we are going to use that specific EC2 AMI into our EC2 instance, by using which we can launch the EC2 instance, and based on the region it can vary, or based on the condition that you want to give in your specific use case, you can use that. So if I go back over here, so in this l- I will just go. Okay, so for creating that specific variable, what you will have to do is you will have to go to variable file. Into the variable file, you have to create a variable with type as map, and map is any. Now I will tell you that also why it is any. So inside map, you have to mention that what kind of map variable you are going to use. So for that means is it going to uh, you know is it going to only add string, or is it going to only add number? So over here you can see, as we have mentioned over there any, then we can also add a string over here. We can also add a numeric value over here in the list, and we can also add this value over here. So this is for tuple, but over here also the analogy is the same. You can use different types of uh, variables while you're defining over here. Okay, so over here what I am doing is I am using the key value var. So right now I am using the variable as US East 1. If I change it to US West 1, what will happen is in US East 1 it will deploy by using this AMI ID, and if I change the region it will automatically go ahead and switch with this. So if in a production use case scenario, suppose a company is targeting for six different regions that they are working upon. In that scenario, so they can target to six different regions, and what you can do is you can add a default value over here, and based on the value that you have mentioned over here, it is going to pick the EMI ID based on the because for every different region the EMI ID is different. So for example, if I go over here in EC2 instance, and if I go to EC2 instances, is nothing. So if I go ahead on instances, click on launch instances. So guys, you will see over here. So for Amazon machine image, you can see the instance image ID over here is 1453 CB. Okay, that is a FTR eligible. Now what I will do is right now I am in US East 1. Let me go ahead and go in US West 1, and let's see if this changes. Okay, so guys, you can see the AMI ID over here has changed. So for the previous one, it was 66 something, and right now it is 1731. So that's what is the use case over here. So as different regions are having different AMI IDs for the EC2 instance that you want to launch, what you can do is you can create a key value pair. Based on that, you can fetch it dynamically into your code. Now, when you want to fetch a value based on the requirement, what you can do is you can go ahead and in the argument you can mention that specific thing. So if I go down over here, so you can see it is doing a lookup. So variable.ami var.aws region. So what it is going to do is, so var.aws region. So if I go back to the variables, so variable AWS region. So if I change this default variable from US East 1 to US West 1, it will automatically pick that. And if I go to EC2 mapping once again, so understand this lookup query. So this lookup function. So before, let's go to the official documentation and search for lookup. See, lookup retrieves the value of a single element from a map given its key. If the given key does not exist, the value is returned instead. So it is doing lookup map the key name, and it will return the default value that you want. So this is one example, like that you can directly give the value and do a lookup. Otherwise, you can do in the manner that I am doing it right away. So right now I am using lookup over here. So in this lookup, first what I'm doing is I am using var.ami. Okay, and what is the condition that I'm giving? So it is going to give me back this specific variable AMI based on the key. And what is the key that I am mentioning over here is, sorry, the key that I'm mentioning, the key would be the AWS region. So it will give back the key that is US East 1 or the West 1, whatever I have defined it over here. And based on that, it will pick the value, and it will based on that it will pick the value, and it will pass this value to this argument, and based on which your EC2 instance will be created. So right now, as it is US East 1, it is going to pick that specific EC2 instance AMI ID. So let's go ahead and test it by running it. So before that, let's see what all commands we have to run. So this is one of the example of the use case that we are going to use. So if I go, so Terraform init is not required because the directory is already initialized. Now we will go with Terraform format. Okay, nothing to format. Now I will run Terraform plan. Okay, so it is running, reading the data blocks. And over here, it is going ahead and saying us that it is going to create the security group, the same pattern that we are creating from a long time. And it along with that, it is going to create a web server, and then web server, the AMI. So this is the AMI. See what AMI it has picked. So this AMI is 6776, and as it is US East 1, sorry, as it is US East 1, it has picked 6776. So what I will do over here right now is I will just copy this and change it over here. And let's see if it is going ahead and picking the second one. So let's clear the screen and run the plan command once again. So guys, here you can see based on the map, the new value has been updated. So if I go over here, US West 1 is 625B177F. So this is the same one that has been updated over here. So see how map is working. So now let's do one thing. Let's go ahead and use US West 2. Okay, so it has given an error. The reason for that is when the lookup is been performed, at that time it is saying that US West 2 is not been defined as part of that specific map that we are trying to use over here in the lookup function. So that is the beauty of using maps in which you can actually, dynamically fetch values based on the region in which your code is going to run, and based on which you can provision your resources. So that's it for this session, guys. So guys, last but not the least, as I promised you that at the end, I will walk you through with the blog that has already been published by me on my official website, that is Dheeraj Chaudhary's blog. In this, you will find all the steps mentioned over here. Along with that, it will also give you the code, and I, I will also show you that when you're using my specific GitHub repository, at that time, what exactly you will have to do. So in this, you can go in EC2 user data security group, and inside this I have added all the files. So for example, suppose if you want to use a key pair, at that time you can use this specific file to create a key pair and associate that specific key pair to your EC2 instance if you want to log into that specific web server and perform some activity. But as part of my use case scenario, I didn't had any requirement where I have to log into the system and check the same. Now I have created EC2 user data, and the other two files that I have shown you, I will be adding that over here because those are the latest changes that I have clubbed together. And while you are going to install the code from this specific repository, what you will have to make sure is, so if you go in providers, so in providers I have actually, you will have to make sure that you are giving your specific access key, or you have to give the path to the credentials file that has been created on your specific local machine. So that is the only change you will have to do at your end. Once you have done that, then you can go ahead and start using this code and do the testing from your end. And by any chance, if you see there is any issue, don't forget to raise issues for this specific thing. So what I can do is I can go ahead and update that for you. So thank you guys for staying for such a long time with me. This was a very comprehensive tutorial where we have explored 3 use cases. Thank you and have a great day ahead.